There is a reason why this circuit is so revered. It's one of the few figure-8 tracks that the world of racing has. But on top of that, it is simply a spectacle. It challenges each and every single component of a car. It provides every single element of elevation change that is needed around a circuit. And it's truly one of the most drivable circuits in the world. So when we take the classics and put it on a circuit which it didn't necessarily have the chance to race to back in the day, this is one of the great tracks to get amazing action from. Welcome to Mie Prefecture and welcome to Suzuka, Japan for your Classic Lotus Grand Prix Series for 2025 Season 1. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to everyone watching around the world. My name is Jake Sperry. Alongside me in the booth today is Alex Goldschmidt with Daniel Costello and Christian Deploy as director and assistant. Cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But what to be said about a Suzuka circuit that hasn't already been said in its history? This is simply put a marvelous circuit, a true unicorn in terms of tracks in the world, and we'll see what it's all about right now with our GSRC Track Guide.
Welcome to Suzuka Circuit, perhaps most famous for its hosting of the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix for much of the event's history. This track sees all sorts of racing besides that. In fact, this place began as a test track for Honda, but later proved to be a driver and fan favorite for competitive motorsports as well. The full layout of the Grand Prix course steals the show, but there's actually 5 different versions that can be run on iRacing. With their lap lengths ranging from just over 2 kilometers to nearly 6 kilometers, plenty of different types of cars can suit the track. GT racing and lower-level open-wheelers are quite popular, but motorcycles are also a staple here. Some of the corners have become world-renowned over the years. The S's are often cited as one of the great tests of a driver's technical prowess. Then, of course, there's Degner's 1 and 2, which provide very little runoff considering their fast and narrow entry. Later on, the long backstretch leads up to the notorious 130R, which is blindingly fast. The Casio Triangle offers one last chance at an overtake if you're brave, but has been the scene of many drivers clattering into one another over the years. F1 fans will be quick to cite the infamous coming together here between Senna and Prost. However, real-life visitors will find it's more than the racing that provides some viewing pleasures. The unique ways in which the Japanese fans celebrate their favorite cars and drivers certainly capture your attention. But it's no wonder they're such fanatics, because who wouldn't be with one of the world's greatest tracks right in your backyard?
There's a reason why we love this circuit each and every time we come here. And when you take a look around this track here, Alex, it is simply a spectacle every time. It produces overtaking, and it seems in any car that you put this circuit around with, it creates an absolutely wonderful racing experience.
I think the biggest thing, as you rightly said on the introduction there, Jake, that this is a track that tests everybody from the sort of S curves after first and second curve. Then you've got what was formerly known as Dunlop, where you're going to be accelerating through the gears and up the rev range through into Nippo Corner. Then you've got the 2 Degners. You've got to be very, very careful about that. And if anyone might remember their F1 history, remember when a certain Heikki Kovalainen went backwards over the tyre wall? That could be very much the case that they won't go over the tyre wall, they might hit it. And then you've got the iconic, you've got the Nissan brake hairpin at turn number 11. That's going to be a sharp test of the anchors. And then we go to the far part of the circuit to 200R. You've then got Spoon Curve, the west straight that leads into the iconic 130R, which really is a particular corner that you've got to have full commitment, full bravado, and full self-belief in the car underneath you. And then you go into what was known as the Casio Triangle, now known as the Hitachi Estemo chicane. That's going to be another true test of the brakes, but that could also maybe cause a couple of drivers to slip up. And especially when we look at the Degners, you know, if you don't hit the apex curb, you're going to be fine. If you hit that apex curb, you are going to hit the wall on the outside of turn 9. So it's about being on your best behaviour, but being firm and fair at the same time.
Yeah, and it's that firm and fairness which I think this circuit does give. It certainly gives and takes away in equal abundance around this track. Let's talk, though, championship, because we're only 2 rounds in, but it has been a dominant display over at the top in the F1 standings. Andreas Henkel, 2 from 2 after a dominant win last time out at Thruxton. Leads Pauli Partanen, who will not be here today and will use one of his 2 drop rounds, with Mikko Leno 3rd and Jerno Fritzsche in 4th position. It's Kimmo Villiakainen who finds himself in 5th, with Michael de Turk's podium last time out giving him 6th position. Aldrius Valenteus falls down to 7th with Nathan Finnegan 8th. Jack David Spickett finds himself 9th, the former champion, and on the same amount of points as Sergio Fernandez, who finds himself in that 10th position. For the F2 standings, for those under 3,000 iRacing, it is a little bit of a different story, though.
Yeah, very much the case. We've got Mike Christopher Jr. leading the way on 72 points. Ryan Turcott and Christian Wagner rounding out the top 3. It's looking very close here, with the top 10 covered by just 48 points. And you and I both know, Jake, that we're only 3 rounds in. There's plenty of races still for people to go up the order. And it's all about this track could be one of the deciding points in the early half stage of this season that could really decide the trend of what moves forward.
Yeah, and that trend, I think, is going to be rather important to see, whether it's just going to be that form is temporary or form is permanent with the drivers and their understanding of a brand new iRacing build. Let's talk teams, though, at the moment, because that also seems to be heating up. McLaren, the team of Mika Leno and David Tomaszki, currently on top by 10 over Parmalat, with Scuderia Ferrari ways away in 3rd position. The Vorsteiner Arrows team 4th ahead of Ligier Gitanes, with the Copasucar Fittipaldi team 6th. Tissot Ensign in 7th ahead of Williams. The John Player Special Team Lotus team in 9th, and 10th rounded out by TBR Racing. I absolutely love the fact here that they do have that mock-up of what happened at that sort of era, at that time here, Alex. It is truly a throwback league.
Oh, throwback is a wonderful word whenever you say it, especially with the fact that the Lotus 79 cars are going to be piloting around this 5.8 kilometre circuit. So we're going to have around about 110 kilometres of racing, 19 laps of this circuit, which, and then we've got the race details. It's around 3 out of 12, 19 laps. It's open setups, no spare car. So you bin it, you're out. Drive through at 17x and a DQ at 25x. But we both know with this series that there's a lot of attention to detail on getting these cars wheeling in the right direction.
There is, and you are always going to be on the absolute limit, and the amount of attention that goes into. We get some information from Michael de Turk here in the commentary box in terms of what you have to deal with. Last time out, he sent us a full map of where you're flat and where you're not. And here he's got a lot of notes here in terms of what they're dealing with. But this is going to be a mixed bag, we think, today, where loads of different setups are going to be in play. But it is still the iRacing holiday sale. It hasn't stopped. It's still going. You can still cash in on that today, but today only. 50% off of all brand new memberships by heading to iRacing.com/holiday sale. Please give the gift of sim racing still, even though it's just after Christmas. Still, though, we are getting set and we are in the thralls of qualifying. They've got 8 minutes to set a lap and 2 laps allotted to them in order to set those times. And at the moment, it is, of course, the hot hand, Andreas Henkel, who's on top at the moment, but he's being chased by a driver who need no introduction, the Hungarian legend that is as quick can be, the former pro stripe like Henkel, Tamás Simon.
Yeah, very close, just under 3/10 between them. And then you see Mikko Leno from Finland rounding out the top 3, 7.5 tenths behind Henkel. Then we've got Reed, de Turk. You know, the gaps are so minimal. Thyssen was about 1/1000th behind somebody else. And then we go again, Andreas Henkel, new benchmark setter in this, 1:44.252. He's opened up the gap to Tamás Simon to over 3.3 tenths. As we ride with Gernot Fritschner at the moment in the number 4 car.
Yeah, the legend Gernot Fritschner. There was a time, of course, about, I would say, 6-7 years ago now, where he was nigh on unstoppable in this machinery. He certainly has 3 times as many wins compared to everyone else. Tamás Simon, hoping he can improve. He's on a 44.5. He's half a second clear of the rest of the field behind. It really has been these two up the front. And that is Pole with a 44.195. He has pulled a rabbit out of the hat. A wonderful time by Tamás Simon to put him on pole by half a tenth of a second. But still, we got those second laps to come through. And Nathan Finnegan, for example, hoping he can jump up. He's just gone to the 4th row.
Yeah, Gernot Fritschner making his way towards the Nissan brake hairpin here at turn number 11. Just be very, very careful. He's just got to then just you can hear the way he's balancing, modulating that throttle, coming out of Spoon Curve. Now it's down the West Straight and heading into 130R. Now, folks, listen closely. Are we going to get a lift here at 130R by the number 4? I don't think we heard a lift there, but then it's going to be hard on the anchors.
Yeah, he was definitely turning in. He dropped 8 kilometers an hour through the corner from 270 to 262 as he drove on through. But as he now powers, he needs 2/10 to the front row, and he gets the second row of the grid then. So he's got there with a 44.7, so that'll be good enough to move to third. It was 2/10 to move into third, and he found more than that, a half a second improvement. And there is a driver who desperately needs a time on home soil, Togo Hisada, someone who can always challenge an upset as he drives his way through the Hitachi Atsumo chicane, makes his launch over towards the line, and he'll be looking at a time somewhere in the 45s or 44s, and he snipes the second row of the grid with a 44.7 of his own. So we'll get the qualifying grid up for you. Tamas Simon has decided he wants to come and play here at Suzuka, and he is on the pole by half a tenth of a second. He will have Andreas Henkel alongside him for company, with Togo Hisada and Jono Fritzsche on the second row. It's then Michael de Turk who goes from 5th, and Mikko Leno in 6th position. The Worcesterman Jacob Reed in 7th, along with the former champion Kimmo Villiakainen in 8th place. Nathan Finnegan starts 9th, and it's great to see the return of Nick Thiessen as he rounds out the top 10. We flip over the page to the likes of Timothy Reed and Paul Williams on row 6, with AJ Roper and Dylan Freckleton 13th and 14th. It is then Adam Fraser and Danilo Sanfilippo, no Marco Sanfilippo, here today, with another former champion, Jack David Spickett, way down the order in 17th, along with Christoph Olenjak, who is there in 18th position. Memo Moreno starts 19th, and Jorge Nieva continuing to struggle to come to terms with the new tyre model. He's back there in 20th position. Over the page to the third row, 32 drivers here today. Josh Brain and Daniel Gallis are on that 11th row, with Seb Alexander and Mickey Friesen in 24th. It's then Antonio Vasquez and Christian Leur, who is there in 26th, with Logan Edwards and Radoslav Zukovsky in 28th position. Jean-Francois Boscus is 29th, along with Kevin Parrish. The last two drivers, the Finn, Sami Juvonen, and then Felipe Garcia Catalan, making up the final row of the grid in 32nd position. All 32 drivers setting a time, but it's a downhill run here towards turn number 1. I think that's going to be important to make that launch here.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you've got to then gear it up for second curve, turn 2, and then heading into the Asura S curves, you've got to be very, very careful. It's about precise throttle and steering input. You don't want to over push that throttle, because the first thing that will happen is the back end will snap 180 degrees the wrong way.
We're getting ready then, because 2 minutes are up. Green flag in the air, and the all-white machine of Tamas Simon gets a great start. It's not as good from Togo Hisada. He'll be under pressure from Michael de Turk and Jono Fritzsche. They cross the beam at the front, in towards the first corner. Simon has got it covered. It's Fritzsche in 3rd position, fighting hard with Michael de Turk around the outside. Hisada might look for a drive off the exit. Now they head to the S's, the Atzler, the very big S's and the Assurance curves, and there's trouble in the back as a couple drivers get caught up. But look at how ferocious it is as they head towards the Gyakubank.
Yeah, Memo Moreno and Josh Brain, the first 2 early casualties going through turn 2, as it's side by side, with Villiakainen battling for around about 6th place just behind him. So that'll be Leno and Reed battling over P7 and P8, still wheel to wheel, side by side, as they head into the first of the 2 Degners. As there's Nathan Finnegan in the number 12 car running P9, but that noise, I can't get over it again. Welcome back, Lotus 79.
But yeah, some troubles for Villiakainen, and he's turned. Kimmo Villiakainen is around. Then at the Nissan brake hairpin, and everyone is going to scream on through. He's done very well not to get collected by everyone else, but he had a half spin into the corner, and look around at everyone else. They are flying by him.
And there's also people flying up into the air. Garcia Catalan, I think, just went skywards, all 4 wheels off the tarmac and skywards, and someone's lost the left-hand side of their front wing there, Jake.
yet no one likes to see the front wing damaged, and especially here in this series, the aerodynamics is not as much as the modern Formula car, but they still play a huge factor in this one. The Hungarian Tamás Simon leads from the German Andreas Henkel. It's then Togo Hesada in third, the Austrian Gernot Fritzsche in fourth. Following that then is the American Michael de Turk. In fact, we have just changed positions a little bit, so Hesada down into fifth, Nico Leno in sixth, Jacob Reed seventh. That is 7 different nationalities in your top 7.
Yeah, more dramas for Villiers-Kynen. I think coming into contact with Jean-Francois Boscus down in 28th and 29th place, so it's not been a good one for Villiers-Kynen at the minute, I'm afraid.
No, Kimo's had a shocker of a start as we focus on Olegnjak, who is there in 15th position. Christoph hoping that he can jump up. It's Adam Fraser who is there just in front of him, and then Paul Williams, who had a very nice showing at Thruxton 1 week ago. So we're certainly getting the sense now that drivers are looking to settle into a rhythm. It's 19 laps. It doesn't sound like much at all for this series, but it's such a long lap around here. There are so many pitfalls, and we do get to see them, and you can see that on the exit of the Degners there as they go through. I think that was Jack David Spickett grabbing a lot of AstroTurf, and that would have really hurt on trying to put the power down. So much torque through those chunky rear tyres.
Yeah, that was him actually going a little bit wide coming out of Degner 2. We've got a replay here. Now this is involving Vasquez in number 17. 3 wide into the Stemmer chicane, and there, that's not going to sit well with the suspension on that one, and Villiers-Kynen just gets caught up and getting turned around before he'd even got halfway through the chicane.
Well, he's been beaten from pillar to post as Villiers-Kynen, and he threw the car into the corner, pushing it 3 wide, so we maybe need a little bit more valour, but we'll go side by side at 130 yard. Timothy Reed is pushed off by AJ Roper through the middle of the corner as he tried to fight for that place. It was pretty much a case of you are not having that room on the outside, sunshine. Lucky it wasn't anything more than that.
And that was over 170 miles an hour there, folks, so AJ Roper bringing fire and brimstone here to the prefecture here in Japan.
Well, he's certainly looking at it right now. These two, almost like it's a clash at the Tokyo Dome at this moment. But for the time being, Timothy Reed does get his man in AJ Roper. The pass at the first corner is one that he'll be very happy about. Dylan Freckleton now sits on the back of this group as they now deal with the dirty air through the middle sector, over the Gyakubank and into the Nippo corner, and the end of the opening sector of the lap. A wonderful foray of battling, and as it's broken away, it's your top 2 clear. Tamás Simon and Andreas Henkel. Gernot Fritzsche with the official fastest lap of the race. The 2 drivers in front both had an off-track on their lap, which is why it doesn't count as the official fastest laps, despite being 8 6/10 of a second quicker. And then, of course, that 3-car group which is there. We focus on the 4th group at the moment. Nathan Finnegan and Nick Thyssen at the moment in 9th position. Now, Nick Thyssen has been sim racing for nigh on a decade, if not a decade and a half. He has been someone who has been pretty much in the fabric of classics for a time immemorial.
Yeah, he's really closing in on Finnegan as they're coming out of Spoon Curve now and heading onto the west straight towards 130R. So this is going to give the opportunity to the man from the Benelux region in the number 9 car. Look at the draft he's getting as we've got picture-in-picture. Spickett's off and into the wall and out.
That's Jack David Spickett on the replay then, finding himself with an almighty shunt, and that's never going to help. Thyssen pivoting towards the inside, but can't quite find what he wants to. But Jack David Spickett out of the race, the former champion, finding out how difficult it has been so far in this series. So we're now seeing a new era through as Togo Hesada looks to chase what effectively will look like his teammate out there at the moment in Michael de Turk, and this is where you're going to start finding out what makes this circuit really, really tough. You pivot through those wonderful, wonderful Ashura S curves over the top of the Gyakubank and back to Nippo again. It is one of the great dyno tests of an opening sector because you are dancing from section to section to section, and one little bit of over rotation and you get a massive tank slapper, and that's the end of your race.
Yeah. As Jacob Reed now closing in on Mikko Leno, and this is coming through into the Degners, and you can just see how aggressive Jacob Reed was on turning, going through T9 at Degner 2 and now into the Nissan brake hairpin here at T11. You can just see how cautious some people are being. Of course, with Jack David Spickett, it wasn't the first time we saw him go off at the second Degner. We saw the first time he nearly lost it then, but the second time it was smack bang wallop, and it was like Kenny Omega hitting the V trigger at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, it was very much the sharpest of hits there as he went into the wall, and as abruptly as that was that. But Jacob Reed looking to give that chase, and I am really looking at this in terms of what are the wing levels out there, who's gaining what in certain capacity out there, because the fastest way to drive this circuit just out there on your own is to run a medium to high force, high downforce setup. But we'll see drivers look to go medium to low downforce around this track just to get the overtaking power.
Yeah, Henkel new fastest lap of the race of 45.497. He's got that gap down. Simon is getting put under pressure. The gap was at just under a tenth and a half as they were going into the first couple of corners. But you see the amount of speed these drivers are carrying through into first curve at T1. Almighty amount of speed, but then they've got to really hook up the anchors, turn it in nice and neat and early to get the carry through here at second curve and into, as you said, this wonderful sort of S-curve complex onto the Gyaku bank. And then we've got Josh Brain having a bit of a fight back. He's trying to go around the outside at first corner, trying to see if he can get the undercut, but it's not quite working at the moment.
In fact, that's Josh Brain through on Kevin Parrish for position, so that's 23rd in the back pocket, and Brain can now start running away here and thinking about the next car in front, which is Sami Juvonen, who is up 9 spaces so far in this race. Your biggest mover so far in the opening 4 and a bit laps of this one. There's also been a lovely gain of 8 places for Logan Edwards, who's had a very nice start in the number 25 car. So there are certainly drivers who are out there moving, making places early. This is a track where you can make progress, and it does rely on drivers being pretty much pixel perfect out there on track. Seb Alexander, another example of a driver who will try and go there, but you've got to go to the race lead because Andreas Henkel has got that right up in underneath. They'll be side by side now as Henkel will have to go the long way around here at the Hitachi Atsumo chicane. He'll stick his nose in and he'll leave just enough room, but he gets himself caught on the inside. No way of making that attack. He'll now attack to the first curve again.
Yeah, Henkel seems to be gaining at least 0.2 of a second on Simon every single lap. It was, on that particular occasion, Henkel, because he was battling away with Simon, lost about a tenth and a half, but he's not holding back his Henkel. As Tamas Simon doing everything he can as his Sada tries to go around the outside onto Turk, through into turns 1 and 2 and into the Sura S-curve complex. So a nice little battle here for 4th and 5th. As the battle for the lead really starts to heat up. We're not even halfway through yet, Jake.
No, we're just about at a third of the way through, and the important thing for Togo Hesada is he needs Jono Fritzsche to maybe go out a little bit further. Once he's out at 2 seconds, he's got a really good chance of making Michael de Turk sweat here for that 4th place. It's a very awkward scenario, but you get the tiniest amount of slipstream here, and it could be enough to save your place. Leno and Reed will now start to look behind because the pace of Nick Thyssen over the last couple of laps took out half a second on Jacob Reed that last time around the track.
Yeah, that was his personal best around the circuit as well, and that was quite crucial. I mean, Nick Thyssen could be on course for at least a top 6 finish, depending on what happens between Leno and Reed as they now make their way through. Olejniak trying to get through into 13th at the moment on AJ Roper. He's going to try and dive to the inside at turn number 11, but then Roper goes way too deep. Sorry, that was actually Spoon Curve. My apologies there. I keep on getting confused. I think it's the hairpin at turn 11, and then all of a sudden you got 200R, then you got Spoon Curve, which is that very deceptive double left. But again, it just goes to show how quickly these drivers are picking up speed, as you said, trying to get into a rhythm, and in some ways by running your own race and then trying to pick off spots as and when you can is probably sometimes the best attack strategy you can have. As Henkel again, very close to the back wing of Tamas Simon as they are still fighting tooth and nail. I don't think I've seen that gap go any higher than 4/10 since they've been battling away since we went lights out.
Andreas Henkel has been fantastic in the way he's been holding back, but Tamas Simon is driving a car that is very loose and very pliable in the way that it turns. It looks like he's fighting the limit of grip through each and every single corner. You've got a car that's very pointy in Andreas Henkel's and a car that's very loose in Tamas Simon's. It is 2 different driving philosophies on display.
Yeah, I mean, I could see what you were talking about there, Jake, when Simon went into Degner 1, the back end, trying to step out to the left-hand side, a little bit of opposite lock just to try and correct it and point the car, get the throttle, get the traction down, and just pull away from Henkel. You could just see how hard Henkel is pushing. And this is a wonderful thing to see, where you got, as you said, two very different styles. Henkel just keeping it nice and precise. Simon flirting with the edge of traction and adhesion to the circuit underneath.
It's very much a tale of two cities at the moment, but who is going to end up as Dickens at the end of this race is the next question. 130R, they now challenge through, and Henkel remaining close but not wanting to attack, and you're starting to see some of the grass and the stones being kicked up from the gravel. This is iRacing's debris refresh system, which is in play at the moment, and it makes no two races the same out there, and it's very much a case of how much can you attack, because out of the Hitachi Atsumo chicane, you're going to really struggle for a little bit of grip. Which way do you want to go, left or right? Still not close enough from Andreas Henkel. He needs a 10th. He just needs a 10th to pull alongside, and he's there. It's frustrating for him.
Yeah, I mean, we're now going to see Jacob Reed trying to go towards the outside into first curve, and there is Nick Thiessen right behind Reed and Leno in the battle for P6, 7 and 8 as they go through into the Asura S curve, heading into Gyaku Bank and then Nippo Corner. So again, another battle that's really starting to ebb and flow depending on the strengths of the respective drivers that we're seeing on track now.
And that strength that we are seeing here, you're going to look, there's always the first stage of the race where everyone settles down, finds their rhythm. The middle stage, this is your meat and potatoes of the race, where everyone settles down, finds themselves a chance to say, right, this is where the hard yards are done, and then it's all about that ganache at the end of the race, where you can find that one final overtake and that extra place, that extra little morsel of something that gives you the race in hand. 6th, 7th and 8th currently on screen and continuing on their run, but the issue that they're all running into here is that they just don't have enough of that launch. Everyone is so worried about the middle sector of the lap that maybe they're sacrificing that top end speed and they're not able to pull along as much as they would desire.
I think it comes down to that discussion we were having a little bit earlier on about downforce setups, as now Hisada on the back rear wing of De Turk going through into 130R. The Japanese driver has just been let through effectively. I think De Turk didn't really want to fight that because, well, first of all, if they can work together a bit more, then, you know, Hisada's had flashes of pace, so has De Turk, but also I think they want to try and get away from Leno, Reed and Thiessen.
Look at this, Henkel round the outside of 1, trying round the outside of 2. Can he stick a nose here at the Astura curves? No, he can't. And Henkel can't find a way through on Tamas Simon. He remains stout again in his defence, and that is the closest we have seen. The race lead changing here in this one, and it all comes down to how hard you're willing to push for it. Oh, Tamas Simon and Andreas Henkel are pretty much polar opposites, but equals at the same time.
This is enthralling to watch as well at the same point, and Nick Thiessen has got past on Jacob Reed. That's one car dealt with.
Yeah, that's an important car for Nick Thiessen to go through on, and he did that in towards turn 1. He would have got the double slipstream down the front stretch in towards turn 1, and then on that climb back up the hill, he had the ability to confirm it. So now he'll be looking at Mikko Leno as the next one, will the Dutchman, in terms of trying to find his next pass out there. So that's going to be where the focus is and where it lies out there in this race for those drivers. But Jacob Reed needing to regather his thoughts and put himself back on the warpath again.
Yeah, it has been that. I mean, in the latter stage of last year's season, towards the end of it, you know, Jacob Reed, I think when we were running at Cadwell Park, had some flashes of brilliance and then also had a couple of mistakes to deal with. But now Henkel again on the back bumper of Simon going into the Estemo chicane. Is this the opportunity that the German might have to get through on the Hungarian? He's getting closer by the second. This is going to be a close one into turn 1. Will he throw it around the outside? No, he dives to the inside line this time, and he's going to get the whole shot through on Simon. Henkel through for the race lead here on lap 10.
Watch out for the attack back off the exit, though, because this is where Tamas Simon's looking to be super duper aggressive. I think he might be running slightly higher downforce out there, the way he's holding through the corners, but that was all down to a double bite into the Hitachi Atsumo chicane from Tamas Simon. That one small mistake, enough to open the door for Andreas Henkel to take the race lead at the halfway stage of the race. Now it's my turn to follow you, and we'll take another look. This is Sami Juvonen, who finds himself in a bit of trouble out there on track, and I think it was with Josh Brain as he moved to the inside. So he gets to the inside, looks into the opening corner, and is there contact between the pair of them as they dive on into the opening section? Front to rear it is, and it's Juvonen who ends up sliding off the road and desperately tries to save it, and just about does.
Or if that car was going backwards, that might have ended up in the barriers with the rear wing off of it, maybe even the rear suspension as well. But Henkel's not out of the woodworks yet, folks, because Tamas Simon is closing back in on him once again.
Yeah, but we can see the level that Henkel's having to drive. He's using all of the road to try and make sure he pulls that margin up. And Henkel, 267. Tamas Simon is 8 kilometers an hour quicker along the straight. Will he decide to make that move into the Hitachi Atsumo chicane? This time, no, he won't. But again, you're seeing here, drive is so important. It's about how early you can put the throttle down. And look how wide they go through the final corner. Simon just trying to dance out of the turbulences to get as much of a launch as possible. I think Simon's best chance is actually going to be into that chicane on the final lap, because it looks like he's got the pace to do it.
Yeah, I'd pretty much agree with you there on that one, Jake. It's just about the fact that Andreas Henkel is now having to, as you rightly said, just try and use as much of the surface area as Mikko Leino and Nick Thyssen coming through out of turn number 2. Thyssen is closing, is about 2/10 off of the Finn in front of him, but it's another important car that the Dutchman needs to get through on, because then there's a further 2.3 seconds up the road is Michael de Turk from the USA in the number 14 car running P5. So if Nick Thyssen can dispose of Mikko Leino very quickly, that's going to be easier said than done. He might have an opportunity with clear air to push a little bit harder.
So here's the biggest shock out of everything right now, with the exception of Andreas Henkel's overtake. He was the fastest driver, was Nick Thyssen, that last time by. Jorge Nieva has had a nothing burger of a race here today. He's started 20th, he's in 20th. This is to go +1 for him against Daniel Gallis, and he's not finding much luck here through the two Degners as Gallis pulls away. They've got that big group in front of Edwards, Friesen, Alexander, Danilo Sanfilippo all there. So that's the carrot, but at the moment, you know, you look at these two drivers and they're giving each other the stick.
Yeah, I was wondering who had the missing left side of their front wing, and it is Nieva, so that is going to compromise the front end aerodynamics. So it's also going to put a problem with regards to braking, turn in, and also trying to accelerate, because you've got that aero imbalance on the front to rear. So Nieva's been struggling all races. Thyssen trying to go around the outside into the Hitachi Atsumo chicane, and now he's got Jacob Reed back on his tail coming out of the final turn.
Well, this is not what you want if you're Nick Thyssen. He's caught in Schrodinger's overtake. It's attack and defend at the same time, but he pulls that gap into Mikko Leino, and he goes on the offensive, and sometimes an attack is the best defence. He covers the line back off through turn 2 and makes sure he maintains his position. Very, very tall order that you're finding at the moment, how tough the racing is right now. And this is for 6th position. You're talking about 3 drivers here who, in most given fields out there in the world of iRacing, they are winning candidates. It goes to show you how tough this season is. It feels like an all-star race.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Henkel and Simon just leading the way. Fritsch's running Billy No-Mates in P3 at the moment, but still doing a good job. That will be good points there for Gurno. Hisada is a further 2.7 seconds back. De Turk is a further 1.2 seconds back. And then this trio battling tooth and nail as Jacob Reed tries to dive up the inside. Thyssen covers the move off. Now they go through. I think that is into 200R, running into Spoon Curve. So running on board with Jacob Reed in 8th place. It's going to be dependent on how hard he wants to push the limit.
Answer is yes and very for the Worcesterman, as he hopes to try and find himself a way through, tucked up underneath the Alfa Romeo signage there on the rear spoiler, and hoping that he's got himself a way to go and attack. But it's just Nick Thyssen that's got a rocket ship in a straight line. That's the issue that you're running into, and again, he looks to explore it. Leino has to go defensive here in towards the Hitachi Atsumo chicane. He outbrakes him, but look at this. It's a cutback to a cutback to another big cutback through the final corner, and this is the launch that Nick Disson was hoping for. Hard to the pit wall goes Mikko Lehno. I'm covering the inside line. Long way around, sunshine is the way you're going to have to go. And Nick Disson, does he have enough to go flying on through? Because Mikko Lehno gives him racing room and just enough, and holds with the downforce.
Yeah, and luckily enough that Nick Disson did not have to worry too much about Jacob Reed, who is still trying to keep close tabs on the Dutchman in the number 9. The gap between them is about 1/10.5 to 2/10 as they go through once again into Nippo corner. But again, it's just this ebb and flow. And then you've got to also think about how these drivers are also dealing with the degradation, especially of the rear tyres, because there's a lot of point and squirt at this circuit, especially coming out of the Degnans. Then you've got that hard braking zone into the Nissan brake hairpin at T11. Then you're accelerating going into 200R whilst turning right, and then you've got the double left at Spoon Curve. Then you're going to be at over 165 miles an hour heading into 130R off of the West Straight. So again, it is a true test of driver and machinery, and we're finding that out, that drivers might have to play it a little bit safe at this point in the season, even though it's early doors.
Yeah, they are certainly looking at playing happy marriages right now between man and machine. It seems at this point it is such a difficult car track combination, but it is one of the most rewarding ones out there. That's why this is split 3 times over the course of this time split right now, and so everyone is out there wanting to race and give their best. Jacob Reed closing down that gap once again here in this 6th, 7th and 8th place battle, but again in that 8th place unable to find exactly what he wants, because Nick Disson is going to have another bite of the cherry at Mikko Lehno. He will once more move over to the left-hand side, but I wonder if he's moving a bit too far along here. It looks like Mikko Lehno is just commanding the circuit much better. Oh, he almost gave him a hit check there. Wonderful stuff. Here's the drive off the exit by Disson, who I think starts to get a little riled up here at the way Mikko Lehno's driving. Now he's trying to cut through the S's here, up over the top of the Gyaku bank. This is such strong driving, but Mikko Lehno playing commander at this moment. There's nothing that Disson can do. He's just got to get a bit more aggro and just pinch him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Disson was hoping for the inside to be open again, but Mikko Lehno just doing exactly what he needed to. It was textbook. It was wonderful to see. Disson had the side draft as well as the tow from the car in front, and thought, okay, I might get past him. But yeah, I think, as you said, he was just a little bit too maybe over-eager, trying to pull over to the left-hand side on the outside of Mikko Lehno down the start-finish straight, and that is why Nick Peterson is unable to get through. He can try again, but Mikko Lehno will use the same playbook.
Jean-Francois Boscus there, just catching the outside curbing there, going through Spoon, and turn 1 into turn 2 as Spoon is always very difficult, as you can see there from Mikko Lehno, the way that he was dancing about off of the exit here. He's desperate for a way to get away, but Nick Disson this time gets the monster of runs. He's going to go to the inside here at 130. Around the outside goes Mikko Lehno on the defence. Simply magnificent. Jacob Reed tries to take advantage. No room for him. Now to the inside. Disson gets shoved off slightly by Lehno, and Jacob Reed gets shoved off with nowhere to go, trying to be an opportunist. Lehno survives, and a calamity in 3 parts ends up with just a little bit of space.
Well, they do say that everything comes in 3s, Jake, and that was exactly what just happened there, as Nieva still trying to get his way past Daniel Gallis in the number 28 for that 19th spot. Nieva's going to be smarting, he's going to be hurting, but you know what? He's still kept running, even with half a front wing on that car.
Yeah, he's done wonderfully here, has the likes of Jorge Nieva, and that damage has hurt, and round the outside, it's certainly not helping at the moment, but he does get the move done. A wonderful pass by Jorge Nieva, and that puts him up to exactly where he needs to. I do need to point out that front gap is now 1.4 seconds, and it's only small mistakes by Tamas Shimon, the overdriving of the car to try and stay in range. That's the difference maker in this one, as Mickey Friesen here in 17th position eyes up Seb Alexander here for a place, and is struggling to find a way to go and get by him at the moment, because it looks like he's just covering each and every place that he needs to.
Yeah, difficult place to overtake around here at Suzuka, but as long as you got that wonderful opportunity of a good run coming out of Spoon Curve or coming out of the Hitachi Estemo chicane, going through into the last corner. Those are your prime opportunities to mash the throttle down as soon as you know that the car will grip the minute you punch that loud pedal on the right-hand side. And that's where we're now seeing, I think Andreas Henkel's treating this like a glorified qualifying session. Fastest lap after fastest lap, he's 6/1000ths of braking underneath the 1 minute 45.
Got to remember, this tank does drain pretty quickly, and when it gets lighter, you got to get that sense of everyone's going to go quicker. That's why we traditionally see the fastest laps late on in this series and not at the start, because fuel loss definitely helps more than tyre wear out there in this series. On board with Andreas Henkel with the Sebastian Vettel helmet on him at the moment, rushing through the two Degner corners right now. This does have a certain feel of a Sebastian Vettel-like drive out there at this point, because he has simply driven his Henkel to a limit that nobody else has been able to match. And Tamas Simon, I would put there as one of the 100 greatest sim racers in the world right now. Yeah,
I think it's just that Andreas Henkel is just putting on a clinic at the moment here at Suzuka. You know, just put the pressure on Tamas Simon until the Hungarian gave him an opening, and it was one opening that Andreas Henkel needed, and what's more, folks, he's taken full advantage of it, and he's showcasing why.
1.6 seconds, it is pretty much death by paper cut for Tamas Simon, because that time isn't going away in massive chunks. He's being bled away now at this moment. A little bit of lap track in front is Felipe Garcia Catalan, who is there just in front for Andreas Henkel to dice his way on by. Not as much traffic as Thruxton 1 week ago, but certainly a lot less to deal with. That certainly has been helpful, and why that gap has improved. 3 laps remaining here at Suzuka, and keep an eye on Togo Hisada's lap times here, because Gernot Fritzsche, I don't think is entirely safe in that 3rd place.
No, because Fritzsche's just done a 45.53, Hisada 45.4 and closing. And just keeping an eye on where Hisada's making up time. He's making up time in pretty much sectors 2, 3 and 5 and 6. So he's made in 4 of the 6 sections. Hisada's got that little bit more than Fritzsche at the moment, and that's why the gap's coming down. But it needs to be a little bit more than that, a lot more than that actually, at least a couple of tenths possibly per sector. As up the inside of Mickey Friesen dives Logan Edwards, and there's contact.
Mickey Friesen, the driver who gets turned around and will not be best pleased then at the way that he's found himself at the wrong place at the wrong time. There was always going to be close. Logan Edwards was desperately trying to get the car turned through the corner, and they just ran out of racing room there. Not much that Mickey Friesen can do about that, but he'll feel very hard done by on what looked to me a case of 2 drivers fighting for the same piece of road on a racing incident.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I mean, turn 2, if you try and fire it up the inside, and here we go on the replay, up the inside goes Edwards, and there's going to be the slightest bit as Mickey Friesen comes into turn 2, turns across Edwards a little bit, left front, right rear, and Friesen around.
Yeah, and in the mock-up Nissan there, trying to be a ZXP Turbo, it doesn't quite go the way that was wanted. There is still battles all throughout the field. For example, Kevin Parrish there, just picking up the pass on Jean-Francois Boscus, who struggles out of the second Degner corner and loses out that spot. So that's how quickly that one falls apart out there. But with 2 laps to go, I tell you what, Nick Thyssen might want this pass, and he might just have to wait to the final lap of this race if he wants it. 6th, 7th and 8th. You got that behind as well, 9th and 10th, Reed and Finnegan. The other Reed, of course, and Finnegan. 2 different spellings of Reed, one from Club Atlantic, one, of course, from Worcestershire in England. But for the moment, Miko Leno, I tell you what, he's been staunch in that defence. There's not really been many ways to get by him today.
Now, he's made the rear axle of that number 6 as wide as humanly possible, with Nick Thyssen, you know, a couple of times trying to get around the outside of him, going down the start-finish straight, was showing that Thyssen probably has a slightly different downforce setup, but Leno's really hugging those apexes through the corners, especially coming through the 2 Degners here, and a little bit of a wiggle to the left-hand side for Nick Thyssen coming out of turn 9 at Degner 2. It's just showing that Micheleno has just gone, you know what, I'm just going to park it.
That's a mistake by Nick Disson. It nearly opened the door up for Jacob Reed to scamper on through. And look at that gap now. It was 4/10 when they got into the corner. It's nearly 8 by the time he gets out of it. So that's massive. This is Radoslav Zhukovsky, top right of your screen here. And this is going up through the Nippo corner. And as he looks to try and get through the second part of it, is it troubles into Degner? That might be what we're looking at here. That first curb, you've got to be very alert to it. And then the second, he slightly brakes there on the curb. He just drives it into the corner. Oh, and he just runs over the car in front that ran wide. And Zhukovsky will not be best pleased with that. I think that was Christian Luhr who he came to with, and both drivers then out of the race in the final stages of this one here. But it still continues on. It's now Jacob Reed's time.
And now, Tamas Simon, new fastest lap of the race with 1 to go. 1:44.884. Gap is now 9/10. Jacob Reed now putting on the pressure to Nick Disson. He's going to try and go towards the outside. Is he going to try and get a cut back into turn 2? Disson says, no, you don't, and parks it neatly on the racing line going into the Asura S-curve.
Oh, but look at the traffic in front of them here on the final lap of this race. This is not what they wanted to deal with in Garcia Catalan, who was there. So Jacob Reed holding himself steady, holding that station and trying to throw everything he can for Andreas Henkel. That gap just wavering 1 second to 9/10. That was the final, I think, throw of the dice from Tamas Simon. He threw a massive 44.8 down on the board. That fast lap was nearly a second quicker than Andreas Henkel, but now he hits that dirty air again, and the question will be, so long as it's perfect for Andreas Henkel, who's got 2 straight wins this season, you start looking around and going, well, what can't he do at this moment? Tamas Simon is one of the great sim racers of the world. He can go quick in nearly anything he can, but Andreas Henkel goes sometimes under the radar for just how good he is, and this might be the coming out party for just how good of a driver the German is. Through the Hitachi Atsumo chicane, and he will say it is Ish Ni San. San straight victories for him. 3 straight for Andreas Henkel. Wins at Suzuka.
What a display. And he's just done a 44.654, blowing Tamas Simon's fastest lap of the day in the out of the water. And also, Fritsche takes second, De Turk and Hisada. Now, Hisada, I noticed, with a lap and a half to go, made a bit of a mistake and dropped himself about 2 seconds behind.
Did he have a slowdown?
I think he might have had a slowdown, De Turk. So Hisada could have nearly pipped him on the line.
No, I think it was Hisada who had a slowdown. He was slow on the back straight on the final lap, pulled it over about 220 kilometers an hour, trying to serve it, and got himself then over the line, P5 in the end. So Michael de Turk takes to that 4th place. A great drag race to the line there as Logan Edwards holds on to the 18th place position ahead of Daniel Gallis. But ultimately, Andreas Henkel, 3 straight wins. It is starting to turn into the Andreas show and friends.
Yeah, that's very, very much the case. 3 wins, all very much deserved, and as you said, a true test here at Suzuka. And Andreas Henkel is definitely much the samurai that has swept and scythed his way through to the 3rd race victory in a row this season.
Well, at the moment, it's Sekiro. Henkel wins thrice at this moment. He takes that win by 1 second over Tamas Simon in an epic display of driving between 2 fantastic sim racers, 1st and 2nd. Jarno Fritsche will find himself a very lonely 3rd place, but he'll certainly take that 3rd spot on the podium ahead of Michael de Turk and Togo Hisada on home soil, dropping back to 5th on the final lap of the race. Mikko Leino had a car as wide as anything out there, and he found himself in P6 with Nick Disson 7th and Jacob Reed only able to manage an 8th place finish. 9th would belong to Nathan Finnegan, with Timothy Reed rounding out the top 10. Moving over the page to 11th, Adam Fraser would find himself there with Paul Williams and AJ Roper. There is Christophe Olenajak, who is there in 14th place, with Danilo Sanfilippo 15th, just ahead of Seb Alexander in 16th. It's then Jorge Nieva and Logan Edwards there 17th and 18th. Nieva, of course, with the damaged front wing. Daniel Gallis finds himself 19th ahead of Mickey Friesen, who would be the first of the drivers a minute off the pace. He would be joined by Josh Brain, Kevin Parrish, Jean-Francois Boscus, and Kimmo Villakainen almost a lap down after Chemo's double trouble on the opening lap of the race. One lap down would be Felipe Garcia Catalan, with Dylan Freckleton, Menno Moreno 1 laps, and then dramas, of course. All these other drivers are retirees. Of course, Radislav Zhukovsky and Christian Lure will technically be classified as finishers 2 laps down, as they made 90% distance, with Sammy Uvanen, Antonio Vasquez, and Jack David Spickett, your retirees then from the race in the early phases of play out there. We do have a couple of drivers here who are ready to have a very lovely chat with us. First and foremost, our third place finisher, Jerno Fritzsche, who has stood by with Alex Goldschmidt.
So, Gurno, good afternoon. A third place finish. It was a race that you were very much spending a lot on your own, but still to get decent points after a trip around here at Suzuka. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Alex. I think that was pretty much the optimum for me, because Andreas and Tamas were simply in their own league. And I had huge pressure from behind from Togo, so I was really pushing to keep a small gap to Togo.
Myself and Jake, we were talking about downforce setup. What was your approach here at Suzuka? Because obviously the first few corners we did see a little bit of a 3 wide. I think you were at the front end of that, and a bit of a calamity through the first couple of corners. But what was your downforce setup with regards to it?
I think it was a little bit more trimmed out than the other guys, because I was expecting to do another bad start. Actually, start was better than anticipated. I wanted to make sure I had good straight line speed to maybe do some overtakes in case I would lose the start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Andreas has been is now a 3-time straight winner. What can you do? Possibly, hopefully, maybe at Phillip Island next week. Could we see a bit of a resurgence from yourself in the number 4?
Sounds like some pressure. Usually, for a couple of years, I've never been that far down with my starting number. So being number 4, despite having my best iRating since a couple of years, says a lot about the quality of drivers in this series right now. So every podium is already a huge achievement in my opinion.
Brilliant. Well, Gurno Fritzsche, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us post-race. P3 here at Suzuka for the Classic Lotus Grand Prix here in Japan. Jake, really good to hear. Obviously, we talked about downforce, and it was quite interesting to hear from Gurno about what his approach was, that he trimmed his wings a little bit lower than the rest of the guys to maybe add for that straight line speed.
Yeah, the only issue you got, though, is you've actually got to be close to someone to make that happen. Although we do also have the opportunity to talk to the driver who finished overall in 4th position in Michael de Turk, who joins us now. Michael, the only issue, I think, with your race was the fact you had 3 Shinkansens out there at the front and they were unable to be caught.
Yeah, it's tough when the guys in front of you get the lottery in the engine pool and you don't.
It certainly feels that way. Those 4 DFV Cosworths certainly seem to be a little bit more juiced up at the front. But for you, a track which pretty much challenges all facets of a driver. You found yourself with Togo Hesada for the majority of that race. Just talk us through your racing as you went through in that battle for 4th place, and what happened on the final lap with Togo slowing late.
Togo's a gentleman in every series that he races in, and he knew that I lifted, so he was offering me the position back there at the end. And I lifted after the chicane to let him know that if he wanted it back, by all means, take it. We're out here to have fun. And I knew if we fought early, I fought him the 1 lap, and I could tell that Miko and Jacob and Nick behind us were still in a line at that point, about 2 seconds back. And they gained like 5/10 the 1 lap that I fought him. And I thought to myself, I'd love to fight this out and have a good race with him, but I think this position is more important than maybe losing 3. So I gave him the lift through 130R and made it real clear, take it and let's go. And he offered it back to me at the end there.
You've been in good form. You've been in the top 5 for the last 2 rounds of the championship. It's another power circuit that we come to next in Phillip Island 1 week from today. Do you think that this recent uptick in form for you, Michael, is going to be one which pays you in good stead when you head over to Cows Victoria?
Hopefully. A little bit of setup help, a little bit of practice time. I'm not really great at Phillip Island. jam it from top speed into a couple of hairpins isn't really my style, especially with the blind crest at the end, like 3 corners from the end. But, you know, I always have fun racing with this group, so I know I'll enjoy myself either way.
Well, we know we'll enjoy watching you drive out there and give yourself a wonderful showcase of your ability. Michael de Turk, there joining us here today, a 4th place finish overall with his results. But that is going to bring the curtain down here with us on the Global Sim Racing Channel and the action that has been here today. I want to thank the entire team who's brought this show over to you today, of course, from Alex, from Daniel, from Christian, and from Dougie as well. We've got so much amazing sim racing here at the Global Sim Racing Channel. It only is just starting. Up next for us in terms of the Grand Prix Legends, which is going to be coming up, that will be, of course, for action going along at Barcelona Historic. So that will be the next thing to try and keep in mind as you go on through. I'm sure that's going to be a wonderful showcase of driving if you can jump on and catch that. That, of course, will be on the 11th as it's Classics Week once again. It's Classics Week every week with us at the Global Sim Racing Channel with the Hockenheim Ring for the IMSA Vintage Series and, of course, Phillip Island 1 week from today for the Sunday Grand Prix Series to catch back up with us. So you want to mark those down in your calendar if you haven't had the chance to already and stay with us on the Global Sim Racing Channel. But what a element of driving we have had. Quite simply put, Tamas Simon threw what he could at the wall, hoping that it would stick. But at the moment, Andreas Henkel, simply put, cannot be touched at this moment. He is on another stratosphere, and 3 straight wins to start a season is a very tall mantle to try and maintain. We'll see you in 1 week's time on the Global Sim Racing Channel, a Genesis Extreme production, as we move on over to Phillip Island.